Hello, everybody. Welcome to Overthrows Media's and Fractured Society. Today, we're going to be talking about electoral politics. My co-host should be hopping on any moment right now, but it's going to be a good conversation because if you've been on long enough, you know I'm not the fondest of electoral politics. I do not really believe that it is a functional way to move, but we're gonna dive into why in a second. So how's everybody's day going? Go ahead and sound off in the comments. Feel free to share this video because that helps us boost up in the algorithm and expand this conversation. A lot of people I wish I could have on here, don't get me wrong, but I know they would never come on to discuss, because I see a lot of people being very fervently electoral politics, right? And I want to challenge the ideas a little bit, but all right, everybody, let's hold up. Shock horror? Wait. Did I miss something? Oh shit. All right. Well. So let me start off by introducing myself. If nobody knows me, it's Big Villainous. My co-host will be on the second, Jelly. We both have been organizing together for multiple years. To give context, everybody's like, they show up in a mask. Well, they don't want to be like a face like that, but they want to be able to raise their voice as well. Actually, let me not speak for them. They can speak for themselves. But we've actually organized for like literally 15 years. So yes, they are a real person. I know that came up a couple times a while ago, like I think last stream or the stream before that. But yeah, and also people asked. I remember there was a question people asked that was, "How do you know they're not a informant or something like that?" And it's like, how do you know about any of these people? Because even if you see their face, you don't know their background. Oh, Jelly is in the house though. Oh shoot, you good to go, Jelly? Give a thumbs up if you're good to go. Oh, okay. Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if you're ready, and I'll put you in. Yeah, all right, boom. What's up, Jelly?
What's up, dude? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you all right. How you feeling today?
I'm doing okay. It's Monday, so, as good as we can be. Fucking Monday.
Mondays are crucial. So when we jump into electoral politics, I had this one thing that stood out to me really big that we had to talk about before we go full dive into the electoralism as a whole. But I felt like for some fun, we should start off something light, like the Trump indictment. You know what I mean?
Loser.
And don't get it wrong, I am a prison abolitionist all the way, but it doesn't make this not a humorous situation. We all know this fool's not even gonna do any time, but it is what it is.
Yeah, his prison's gonna be Mar-a-Lago. You guys, you can keep the fucking tears for him. It's like he doesn't need them yet. He's good.
Exactly. I mean, if he's on house arrest, let's be real about it. He'll probably just put the house arrest bracelet on like someone who works for him and be like, just stay here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because this dude does not play by the rules anyways, and we know this. But also another thing I want to think about is that none of these politicians play by the rules. Let's be real about it. Biden neither. But oh man, I found it kind of humorous. I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean? A sitting president. But one thing it made me think a lot about is how the faith of the electoralism is destroying the faith in the U.S. itself, which is hilarious. It's like the whole promise of it. The promise is the democratically elected government, right? But it itself is destroying the faith of it, because we get Donald Trump, who was, I guess electoralism, democratic electoral process, was elected, which doesn't mean populist vote, but I'm just saying, but was elected, and now the outcome of him not wanting to leave leads to a drop of the faith in the government as a whole, as well as clearly electoralism, which is interesting. Now I'm gonna talk about the rights critique of it, because they're kind of like on some conspiracy theory.
Of course.
But what was the impact when you saw Trump's mugshot though? Well, how did you feel about that?
Oh, dude, I didn't care about the mugshot. All I cared about was the fact that a fucking American president was fucking facing charges, and this shit's gonna cause a constitutional crisis. It's like, let's go. You know, dude, these motherfuckers are trying to protect America so bad. They're like on a fucking warpath to death to America, dude. They're going to bring about the end of this empire because it's just fracturing, dude. But yeah, no, I thought it was pretty funny that he's just some old guy who's like, I'm going to look all big and tough. Ooh, you know, and you're like, come on, man. That's not that. That's
okay. I don't even want to say that. Screw him, but let's be real. They set up the mugshots, if y'all don't understand, to make it look like they have the camera in a certain way so you look as evil as possible.
Yep. It's pointed above you at an angle, so you always get that freaking Norman Bates Psycho angle where he's like looking down and like, you know, so you always have it like you're looking up past your eyes, kind of like doing this whole thing. So you always look evil in those. Yeah. Yeah, I've actually tried to smile in my mugshots before and they wouldn't let me. But like some of these fucking Trump people, they got to like look straight in the camera and fucking smile. And I'm like, that's bullshit, dude. All my pictures look like I'm fucking about to eat somebody or some shit, dude. Like, I wasn't even that angry and it looked like I was like evil, dude. Like, it's bad. It's bad.
Man, it would be funny to be like in county though, and you see like Donald Trump being paraded up there. I'll be like, bro, what? Look, I'll be real. I did not think that was actually going to be something that happened. I did not think he was going to get a mugshot took in. I really didn't think it was going to get that far, but yeah, it is funny. But the thing is, like I said, I'm going to be very clear. I'm still an abolitionist. I still ain't even working for him. I just want him to be given to all his workers he screwed over. Let them have their conflicts free of any charges with that dude. You know what I mean? Because let's be real, man. That dude has been doing damage to the working class for a long time.
For decades.
It's funny that the right does try to frame him as like the hero of the working class. I'm like, bro, have you seen his business history? Like, have you like seen what he's done to his workers? Are you wild? Oh
yeah, motherfuckers just want to eat their glued together steaks because fucking Trump said they were good or some shit, dude. It's wild. It's fucking wild. Because I agree with you, dude. I like nothing has changed my abolitionist stance. It's a long-term goal, but like I'm not going to apologize for finding it funny when motherfuckers that run the empires, run the carceral systems, grind other people into freaking meatloaf in those systems get put into those same systems. I don't think it's good, but I'm going to laugh. I'm going to laugh at them so hard because I think it's funny when people get a taste of their own medicine. I'm sorry. I think it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing is like, if you're a Leo, if you're a former Leo, which is law enforcement for all y'all, if y'all politicians, y'all that like rule of like about like feeling, I don't care. Y'all, that might be a contradiction as an abolitionist for me. I'll own that. But like, I don't really, but also I just don't care what harm comes to them, period, because they be wilding. But that being said, the interesting thing of what we see with the Trump indictment is like, is this going to be a new form, or is this really just how electoral politics started, right? Like, is this a new form of politicians, or was it like going back to its roots? Because I mean, I don't know. I think about the movie Gangs of New York and how accurate that was to like how grimy those politics started out as, and it feels like it's just a return to form almost. Yep. You know what I mean? And I think when we talk about electoralism, right, because it used to be even grimier when it first started, because you know people would pay like actual goons to come beat on people to be able to get the votes. Would put like, that the police forces, like until like, I don't know what, 40 years ago were known for what they were, but originally they'd go and they'd harass the community and they voted for particular politicians who paid them off, right? So like, I kind of, when we go back to electoralism, right, this thing that's supposedly democratic process, we just see more Trump-esque shit. Like, like that's literally what that foundationally was, and it's kind of funny to see. Now see a president get fully indicted. That's a whole new move. But that's
I fucking dreamed of seeing this shit as a little kid. I dreamed of the empire collapsing and watching like the fucking leaders getting fucking like torn apart by their fucking little fans, dude. I've been dreaming about this shit for years. It's so good. It's so good. I'm like a kid in the candy store, dude. I love it. I love it. Not that I think it's going to cause anything good. Like that, I don't want anybody to like get any misconceptions. I don't think it's like good, but I also think it's very funny and a sign of an empire collapsing. And I'm pretty A-okay on that one.
Yeah, that crumbling of the empire definitely is a big part of it. And I'm glad that people are finally starting to lose faith in it, because people have been having faith in the system my whole childhood, right?
Yep.
I think I want to go back to what I was asking, like, do you think that it is a sign of return to form? Like, it was kind of born this way and it's kind of collapsing the way it was born? Because it feels like the level of I hate TYT, but to use their word, cronyism that existed in early electoral politics seems to be what's kind of returning. And even when you think about the responses from even like the blue side of it, like, still just cronyist bullshit. Like, it's still the same type of energy. It's just from a little like, white gloves have him motherfucking instead. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. I think that like literally right now we are seeing the end of the neoliberal agreement. The kind of like the agreement between both sides of this neoliberal social order that they were, they compete against each other and they cooperate against us. And right now what we're seeing is a return from that very idealistic, it's the end of history, neoliberalism won, there's nothing else. And we are seeing a return to that form of, no, politics is fucking tribal. It's based on very basic kind of group identification, not even as much about what you're staked to gain from them, because most politicians, like, people vote for the politician because they're like, oh, that guy's going to take away less from me, not give me more. So like that shit is just kind of fucking falling to the wayside, where people are going, no, I don't care about the neoliberal consensus anymore. I just want to win and I want to hurt my opponents. And that is the era of Tammany Hall. That is the era of all these old fucking politicians. Like, it's coming back in a big way. And neoliberals tried to pretend like, oh, materialism, it's not that big of a deal. It's all the ideals of neoliberalism. But no, guys, it's who can muster the ground forces. And somebody like Trump, he's very bad at maintaining neoliberal hegemony. But he's very good, very, very good at bringing people into the base through that kind of libidinal need for violence. They want to strike out at their opponents. And fucking Donald Trump isn't selling them, oh, if you vote for me, neoliberalism will be saved and we'll all have great jobs and great lives. No, he literally promises you can hurt your enemies with me. That's what he promises. And so that is literally where we're going. And the Democrats they haven't woken up to that yet, which is really funny because they never will. They're an oppositional, they're controlled opposition. So they're just going to get paid to be like, we swear, guys, we're totally fighting the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. But they're not, So I'm curious what we're going to be seeing in the next few years, because I think we're going to be seeing more pushes away from electoralism in the sense of like, oh, these compromises, and more towards social movements and groups on the ground who have varying different beliefs and are going to fight over it. Anarchists, we haven't had as much time in the sun in the last few years, but there's going to be new resurgences. The fascist right is having resurgences on the ground. That's not, their strength isn't in the elections. Their strength is on the ground. And I think that's where we're going to be seeing more and more coming into the coming years, where politicians are going to try and convince us to vote and convince us to get distracted by the electoral circle, but the little merry-go-round. But no, more and more people are ditching it because we literally know that it's more about material shit and it's about the fight, and we got to fight.
I mean, that's a good point too. When it comes down to the situations, right? I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what politics are, right? A lot of people talk about politics as electoral politics, voting on policies. And I also want to be clear, the Democrats and Republicans aren't oppositional in policy. The policies are just how they win us over, right? They're oppositional because they're competing for the resources. I want to be very clear about that. They don't give a damn about these policies, what side they're on. They'll switch back and forth. They all supported the crime bill. They all supported like literally a lot of fascist ass policies, and it's
Yep.
on both sides. It's not like the Democrats aren't any better. And like, let's be real, like the center or the centrist or the like Green Party or the liberal left or sock dams, they're a lot of time not much better either. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, dude. The reason I didn't get to
I think it's really important to recognize that. But like we talk about these alternative people, right? When we were talking about like Cornel West, right? Like his politics are so trashy, trash, bammer. You could see him like co-signing you like calling Reagan a fighter for justice. I can't remember how he worded it, a freedom fighter. He's standing up for DeSantis, all those weird things. Not only just that, but like when we think about what do they really do on the ground? Nothing. And I think one of the things we got to understand about politics is not these electoral politics. And yes, we see him got arrested in Ferguson, where he was away from the rest of the people and did it by himself for cameras, right? Boom, that happened, right? But when we see what really is power and politics go hand in hand. And politics are literally the functioning of power. And power doesn't come from the electoral politics. It doesn't come from asking for something. It comes from taking something. And then they will respond to that in a specific way that will lead to things that we call reforms, but not to respond to the ask for reform with a reform. They respond to active resistance with reform. Yep.
Yeah, there has to be a threat, or else there's no reason for them to give that concession. There's no need for it unless there's a threat of some cost for them. It doesn't need to be a physical cost. It could be a toll. It could be something that hurts their standing with their supporters or anything. But there has to be a cost. That's how you push things. It's people are always trying to get us stuck in this reformists merry-go-round of like fighting for the reforms. And that's not how we got Social Security or Medicare or anything shit back. Social Security, for example, FDR pushed Social Security through because he was a rich guy and he knew that if shit kept going on the way it was, there was going to be a revolution and all the rich guys were going to get it. All of them, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, all of them. It was going to be a class war. And so they knew that, and they knew that they had to push through certain reforms, but it wasn't because out of the goodness of their heart or something like that. It was that there was a cost. They were looking at potentially the end of their luxury, the end of their family's ability to be a dynasty. And they were willing to make some concessions for that. But that's not what, but you wouldn't have gotten Social Security through trying to wrangle the votes and go, come on, everybody, get out and vote. It's the most important election of our lifetimes, even though we hear that every single year.
What caused the 8-hour workday, though? Like, it was uprisings. It was people being like, people literally gave their lives and fought against the state to be able to get the 8-hour workday. Fought against corporations. It wasn't like we got those reforms didn't come because of reforms because the people were being reformists. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize. That definitely didn't come from voting. Now, I want to talk a little bit about
can I put one thing in? Just the Battle of Blair Mountain. The Battle of Blair Mountain in the 1920s was like one of the most violent labor struggles. It was multiracial. It was like the coal companies were trying to split the white and black workers apart. Those white and black workers, they put on a red handkerchief around their neck and they grabbed their rifles and they went to war with the U.S. military. They literally went to war. Like the National Guard came out and shot them.
We're talking history. We're not advocating anything.
Oh, no, I'm not advocating for the government to kill strikers. I am advocating for strikers to just protect themselves.
I'm just saying, just for the YouTube POS, we're not advocating any type of violence. No. We're talking about history, just history. Also, that same history talking about abolitionists, lens. Those same people who wear the bandanas in Kentucky went up, and also when they would use prison labor to then take the coal miners' jobs to scab. You know what the unionists did as a response to that? They literally went and broke everybody out of prison. Not once, but twice.
Hell yeah.
That was kind of wild, right? That's some worker solidarity if I've ever heard any. But
hell yeah. If you want to call yourself anti-racist and you ain't busting people out, I don't know what you're doing. Like,
bro. And Okay, I did want to jump into the next segment, because I feel like we should get into the point of how this affects like on the ground organizing and
Yeah.
stuff, because I felt like a really big important part to talk about when it comes to politics is the impact. Okay, I didn't tell you all the segments. Okay, so the first segment, sorry, let me do some housekeeping real quick before we jump into this. So the first segment we just got through with was Trump's indictment, talking about the ramifications, and its connection to cronyism and all that good stuff, and like the original Tammany Hall type movement. The next thing we're about to jump into is the impact of voting on organizing every season, every 2 years. And then we're gonna hit with is there a lesser of two evils, and then we're gonna end with what's more effective than voting. So yeah, so this next part right now that we're entering into is the impact of voting on organizing every season, every voting season.
Yep.
And I think some of y'all who've been on the ground long enough know what I'm gonna say. And one thing is, I'm gonna say, I don't use the time of organized as a way to be like above people, because a lot of young folks that are brand new bring whole new thoughts that are really powerful and really helpful. I use this as seeing certain patterns that people might not have noticed yet because of the time I put in and watching the in and outs of things that function, right? But something I've noticed, and I think a lot of organizers that have been around a long time have noticed as well, is that every 2 years that we lose momentum in all our movements on the ground. And it's because it gets funneled into, I made a word, funnelized, just funneled into electoral politics. Electoral politics ends up being a distraction from the movements that are making an actual difference. I'm talking about things that are having substantial impacts on communities' well-being, that are actually helping and benefiting people, then take hard hits. Things that were putting pressure on some of the people who cause harm to our community also takes hard hits, because everybody gets funneled into vote for this person on a local level, or even worse, every 4 years, the big elections of the presidential election, everybody gets funneled these things that even most liberals would admit you don't really make a difference, especially if you're not in the swing state. It doesn't really matter. So like even based off of that, now we can talk about, is voting for Democrat, Republican even an effective thing, but we'll get into that later. But the thing is, what happens is all the energy gets sucked out of movements, sucked out of moving into electoralism. And people have heard me say a lot that I'm against voting, and that is what I'm talking about. Now, if you just sign a dial a piece of paper and throw it in, I don't care, right? But if you spend all your energy, time, thinking, speaking, putting energy into the electoral system, then what you're doing is, I'll be real, assimilationist at nicest, but I'd even argue it has counter-revolutionary and counter insurgency slant to it.
And it definitely does. Yes.
And I'm not saying to just trash people, but that's why I get frustrated with a lot of people won't even have these conversations with us. They want to lump people who aren't for voting in with Trump without hearing the actual arguments of why we're not for voting. And I'm saying it as an on the ground organizer. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it as just somebody who's just like ideologically, I'm just like, ideologically voting is just voting for fascism. Like that's true, but like I don't care about that. What I'm saying is why is because it damages the movements on the ground. Let me pass the mic to you, because I know you're gonna have a lot of input as well.
Oh yes, and again, I don't want to we're trying to be careful here, because we don't want to demonize somebody who just is like, yeah, I voted for home, or I went one day out of the year, I voted for this guy because the other guy, I hated him more, and I wanted to see the other guy lose. I don't give a shit. What we're talking about is not just somebody's individual choice to do something or not, and that's their own personal balancing act of but what are you trying to get other people to do? And what are you doing with the momentum that we all have for social movements? Are you trying to channel that into successful campaigns or successful projects that we can make a material effect on the world? Or are you pushing people for whatever reasons? This might be you might be malicious, but you also might just be kind of a lib, and you're like, oh, I think that's going to be good to vote or whatever. You're effectively taking that energy out of our terrain, out of our physical terrain, like the social movements, places where we have a little bit of power, and you're trying to shift it into the kind of the fighting ring of the billionaires. And what that does is that takes away all of our leverage. We have no leverage over elections. We have no leverage over any of those people because they're all paid by billionaires. Now, it doesn't, like, for example, I'm an anarchist. I think voting doesn't change really anything. I did vote on something once. It was like an initiative. One of the things I voted on was an initiative to expand medical euthanasia for people with terminal diseases who choose to do that. I think that that's important to let other people do that. Was I going out there and being like, everybody needs to do this? No. When people brought it up, I talked to them about it. We talk about the things around us, but there's a difference between acknowledging and living on the shifting terrain that we're in and being like, oh, okay, the enemy made us a fucking environment. Let's just go hang out in that. No, that's going to be against us. You know, it's not, that's going to promote their interests. It's a terrain where money wins, money talks, and we don't got that shit. So like, why are we, you know, but again, I don't want to make somebody feel like, oh, I did vote that one time on that initiative, or this guy, I thought he'd be less bad than the other. I don't care what you did. I don't care what you did personally, what you did, I don't care. But what we are trying to bring up is that those motherfuckers online or these other places who everything you say, oh, there's a problem here, a problem there. And they go, electoralism. You got to vote. You got to do this. That's the way to do it. That's the problem. Because what that does is that denies that we have a lot more latitude in this terrain of social change than we do. They're trying to trap us in one spot where we can be corralled and kettled easily. And I just don't agree with that. I think that that's a bad strategy.
Exactly. And like, I'm also like, I gotta add something too. I think it's a bad strategy on the level of like pressure release valves. Like you're creating more pressure release valves. And I know that everybody's like, well, that's good, right? Like, no, it isn't. Because like it's allowing us to be the frog that's slow boiling, right? Slow boiling. Just throw us in the fire so we all jump out. You know what I mean? Like, shoot, it's hot. Like, we out of here, man. Like, no. But as long as we slow boil our way to human extinction, let's be real, that's what was headed towards. Not just local, pardon, not just local problems, not just the U.S.'s problem, but global problems, right? And we've been a global problem. The U.S. has been a global problem. Let's be real. Like, you know what I mean? The warmonger of the fucking world, right? It's been a global problem. We're just slow boiling ourselves. Not to mention, there is the side of it that is like, you know, it is voting for fascism to vote for it. There's that. But like, I don't want to get too ideological with that because I get the harm reduction argument on that. Now, I don't want to, I'm going to save for a little later if it is really harm reduction, because I'll argue it might not be harm reduction like you think it's harm reduction. But I think when the things that I've also seen stop, right? Because of the energy put into voting, right? Running campaigns for somebody. I've watched whole campaigns that were making headway get like put down, like literally put down multiple times because election season hit. And that's like bad. That's bad because when we're getting W's, when we're causing change in a real way, and then we go and spend a lot of time to vote for something that's not going to cause change in a real way. Like, oh, all these big decisions. Well, these big decisions, again, I'll jump into this more when we get to like, is it really an effective thing or harm reduction? These big decisions are already seemingly, to me, based off my lifetime at least, a trajectory. Based off what I've read, a trajectory. These things are headed a certain way. It's a train going a certain direction, and you're not really swaying it. They're all just making what time frame does it happen. One of the things that I always think about, people talk a lot about like all these things about like who they're coming for and all this stuff. But I'm like, bro, they came for poor niggas first. What do you think the crime bill was? And they just keep elevating those stances of who they can include in criminalizing and making somebody that they can use as slave labor or can abuse. They just keep expanding out from that, right? And that's like the trend that has been with this country. We fight, we fight with it. It like has to pull back because it's like, oh, we can't push that heavy fist down, and then it slowly grips down more and more and more every year, right? And we think that voting for, say, the Super Predator bill dude is better than voting for the Central Park 5 dude
Yeah.
And like, yo, this is a losing situation right now. They
Mhm.
think that there's any difference. You know what I mean? And one thing I will point out is the only difference that happens is which population is getting it at what time. You're
Yep.
all gonna get it at one point. Which 4 years is which population is gonna get hit this 4 years, right? The next 4 years, and the next 4 years. Like, and it's really, they're trying to get at all of us, and they're just picking who, right? And it just keeps rotating. And I think one of those things we start thinking about when we talk about, like, for example, a lot of people focus on the Trump versus Biden thing. It's like,
Yeah.
bro, who was bad for you? Who's less bad for you might be who's more bad for me, and who's more bad for me might be less bad for you, because people are still just attacking different sides of the population. So even electoralism turns us against each other because we're fighting for interest. And like, there was something I think it was Ole said about that I agree with, but I also don't think they thought it all the way out in some of the ways of how it might affect other people, was that their interest as a black woman should, like, they feel like, oh no, it wasn't them. It was on their stream, but it wasn't them. I forget the other sister's name who said this actually. But I've only seen them on that one stream, so I don't really know their name very well. But they said, I want people to have to fight for my interest, right? To have to speak to my interest, and not have to make me worry about everybody else's. Well, like, yeah, that's real. However, like, the reason that we're not all on the same page is everybody's interests are different, right? So when you talk about, like, for example, Biden being less bad for black women, I can completely believe that, or women in general. I completely can believe that, right? He ain't really good for him. He's still gonna let the same things happen that would have happened with Trump. But, like, I believe what people are saying with that. But then you get to the other side as a convict. Who you think, as a black convict specifically, as one of the people we're talking about, super fair bill, who do you think is worse, for me, right, or for a hell of a black? So it makes these things where we fight a dichotomy when it's really like, there's which line do you want to get eaten by? Which lion do you want to get eaten by? The pack of lions or the pack of hyenas? One of them will eat you. And it's like, yo, I don't want to be eaten by either one of them. So to engage in that conversation, like, I'm gonna just sit there and take it, I think is part of the problem. And I think it distracts and pulls from our own agency. I think it pulls away from our ability to have solidarity with each other, because it makes us compete to be heard by people who don't care about us, right? And who's going to hear us better given our specific demographic or our specific experiences. And really, they're neither one of them. Like, it's really just neither one of them. They don't care. They're just like, they want to make us malleable to them. They're not malleable to us. If that makes any sense.
Yep. No, I feel you. Yeah, I like with electoralism. It's like, yeah, there's like, look who's passing all these things. All of them. You bring up the crime bill, but I also think about, like, welfare to work in the 90s. Like, the reason my mom had to work like 2 and 3 jobs at a time, and I almost never got to fucking see her, was because of welfare to work. And those are the fucking Democrats that were supposedly helping us and helping my mom, a single working woman who's got a multiracial family. She's working hard. She's Rosie the Riveter. They didn't give a shit about my mom. My mom's body is broken. Like, now this is those things. We're also trying to figure out ways to, like, just survive. But we also have to be real about these people. They are not our friends. They're not. They're going to try and get as much capital out of us as possible, because that's how they get rich. They wring capital out of us, out of our labor, but, like, we need to be honest about that kind of situation, that, like, when the conversation gets pulled into the electoral room, who can control that conversation? Can we? Do you own Fox News, viewer? I don't think you do. I don't own Fox News or CNN or NBC. Billionaires do. They're the ones who can afford to have those people on, who can afford to decide who's the responsible, candidates, who are the electable candidates. They get that. That's their power. We don't have that power. So by engage, not, and I'm not saying like, oh, if you put your name on a dotted line or whatever, and you took 5 seconds to vote by mail, or you went to the voting place one day a year between actions, or I don't care. But like, when we allow ourselves to get like lost in this continual cycle, then you're going to find out, like, you're going to look around, you're going to be like 2 or 3 years later, and you're going to be like, wait, what the fuck happened to all of our organizing? What happened to all those projects? Where did they all go? Why are all the people who I used to think were solid, now they're all working for people in their city hall council fucking campaigns and shit? Like, that's just depressing.
Yeah. And not to mention, austerity's still going to come.
Mm-hmm.
From both sides. Like, it was Bill Clinton that took fucking, for example, education out fucking prisons, for example.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A million other things they cut, and every other president after cut a million other things, right? And the thing is, like, they really are figuring out how to cut as much as possible on both sides of it. So when we think about what we should be doing, like we see about like what was actually effective, I mean, is we see that the shit we do, the stuff, the programs we create, the mutual aid we build is the stuff that sits and stands.
Yeah.
And here's the problem: is most people again leave to do campaigns for electoralism and also never come back. So then it be a small group of people being the backbone of a whole movements.
Yep.
Whole movements, like national movement, like there's a small group of people that hold up most things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Across the nation. And I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than 1,000 people. Like, now there's a lot more people involved in stuff, but the people that stay consistent and carry that and hold that on their shoulders is a very small group of people. You know what I mean? It could be more than 1,000. I'm just saying, like, it could be as small as that. And that's the
very
reality
small
of it.
Comparatively.
And the thing is, also, they also align with the turnover cycles, right? Because I talk a lot of times about people organizing only lasting about most organizers only last about 2 years, and it's usually election cycle to election cycle. You know what I mean? And then they get their careers lined up and whatever they want, and however they want to line is even if they're a political figure, they leave the movement to be a political figure. Peep that. They leave the movement to be a political figure, right?
Yep.
And so then they build up their credentials and then go on and do something else. And then the grassroots movements that make the impact, that are feeding people, housing people, that have fight back when the police attack us, that fight back when the prisons attack us, that shut down, they pull out of those and just do their own little capitalist thing. And so the thing is, that happens around electoralism. That happens around those time frames. And I think that's very intentional. I think it's set up to do that by the state, by the system, by this country, to be able to keep us under control. I think that is fundamentally intentional.
Oh yeah, no, it's very much intentional. It's designed to recuperate these kinds of most rebellious aspects of society. Like, this is the thing that happened in the 60s. All the fucking people were going crazy, fucking, pushing hard. And then a lot of people got sick of, a lot of the liberals got sick of getting their heads cracked open. And now, who are the managers of all the CEO and all the fucking, of all these corporations? It's all these 60s, radicals. And they're coming up with new ways to revolutionize the workplace. What that is that capital is absorbing the least combative aspects of each kind of dissident movement to try and get those tactics that the dissident movement can teach capital to strengthen it. They absorb those people. They absorb those people into it. And then, those people get the paycheck. They take the paycheck. Maybe they get into politics. Maybe they get into some other kind of, non-profits or some fucking bullshit non-profit industrial complex, but ultimately, this is being used as this churning cycle that capitalism is able to kind of always recruit from the people who kind of see its problems the clearest. Because that's the thing, if capitalism wants to continue, it has to be able to deal with its contradictions. It has to be able to deal with its problems. And if all you have are people going, oh, capitalism's the greatest, there's no problems with it, they'll never be able to take care of those problems. They'll never be able to find solutions to those deep, contradictions. And so capital requires dissidents to get reabsorbed, recuperated back into this process, so that they can then serve as effectively the antibodies of the next wave of resistance that capital can kind of protect itself from, you know? And so those electoral campaigns serve a very valuable purpose. You get some people who might draw people in or act as a sort of leader going into the political realm. And then people just fucking abandon the social movement because they're like, oh, this person, the politician guy or the politician lady, I'm going to follow them, you know? Whereas, you know, when we recognize that as a form of recuperation, we can understand, yeah, sometimes I know BP's been there too, back in the day of Occupy and all that shit. There were times where we had to work with Kashama. None of us liked that shit. None of us liked it. But we did, because we were in a coalition. We had to, you know?
I literally have photos with Sawan. If you look at me in the photo, I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not happy. But it was like trying to keep the pressure on after we defeated this $140 million police like bunker that we're trying to build, would be the most expensive ever proposed in the country, and we defeated it, but we wanted to keep that pressure on so they didn't try to bring it back like a year later, 6 months later, you know what I mean? Which was effective, but also then Sawan took all this credit for all this work we did, and like Sawan didn't do jack. Sawan didn't do jack. Didn't do anything. But you know, it is what it is. But we realized that okay, they have the social capital, like they have the eyes that we don't have. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But but we also back in Occupy knew them before they were actually politicians as well. Yeah.
When she was just teaching at Seattle Central with her fucking nerdy ass husband. Yeah. Oh, those fucking dorks. God.
Oh man. But yeah, and the thing is, like, one of the things that you gotta think about with politicians, with people too, that get really famous as well, is you don't know their history, right? If you're not from a city. Like, for example, us talking about Sawan, I'd be like, what? Probably, like, there's probably people in here like, what? No, they're great. Like, but if you ask anybody from Seattle, anybody, not even people who don't even like us, like, at all, right? They'll be like, yeah, no, Sawan sucks. Like, but people don't know that, and that means every single politician. You don't know the dirt they've done. Only people who've been around for it know. You know what I mean? And
now that doesn't mean that, like, when Sawan makes like life hell for Seattle billionaires, I think that's funny. But like, I also don't see her as part of the solution. You know, I love it that she makes my enemies upset, but like, she's not. You know, she's doing this shit for her and her career. And, you know, her and her husband's careers. All right.
I'll believe it. I don't want to too much on bashing someone. I just want to let you know, I mean, that's like, because someone's like really not a big person now. No, but, you know, politicians, period. I want to say on the politician period thing, just because I want to guide it, because we have personal resentments, so I want to get to in those. The thing is, when it comes to politicians in general, they all have these sordid histories that you don't know about. Like, I'm sure AOC, who has a bunch of people beyond, like, no, they suck. Like, but you don't know it because you don't know them, because you're not from where they're from. You feel me? You can name any politicians or even like public faces. Hey, look, be even real. Public faces, even myself, there's probably people like, oh yeah, I hate that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
Oh, I know. I made some enemies in the movement, you know, people that just didn't like me. They're like, this motherfucker talks too much and is too loud and obnoxious and shit. I know. People don't like me, and that's cool.
But, you know, also it's important to be able to understand the history of people. Like, if you find out why people don't like me, you'd be like, oh, that's kind of whack. You'd be like, yeah, it's kind of whack. But you find out why people don't like, say, some of the politicians, for example. Most times you're like, oh, yeah. I mean, but it's also the personality type that politicians address, which brings to the next segment. Yes. Is there a lesser of two evils? That is the question. And I want to let you start, Jelly, because I don't want to start just throwing my opinion out on this too fast, because I know I'm gonna, you know, I'm very opinionated around this lesser of two evil conversation, you know?
So for me, I think that the lesser of the two evils conversation is a distraction to keep us in this circle. I'm not going to like blame somebody if they like see two politicians and one of those politicians is like, I'm going to really hurt your family. And the other one's like, I'm only going to hurt your family a little bit. Like, I don't blame them for voting against them. Like, you know, like, I don't. Like, do I think that that's like a successful long-term strategy? No, but I'm not going to like shame somebody, you know, like I'm queer. There's quite a few people that are queer in my family. We're multiracial. Like, we've dealt with some shit in this world, in this country. This country doesn't like us very much, you know? And so, like, there are certain things that, like, because of who my niece's partner is, a politician that says, hey, anyone who doesn't, like, isn't gender conforming, we're going to fucking lock you in prison and steal your kids. Like, you know, I'm probably going to look at that politician a little bit more dangerously, because they're literally threatening to take the kids from my family, you know? But, like, ultimately, does that mean that Biden is, you know, the other side is going to do the things that they said? No. Fucking Democrats have had it, like, the ability, like, they had fucking filibuster proof majorities multiple times, like when Obama was in there, to be able to pass, to codify Roe versus Wade into law, to codify gay marriage, codify these different trans rights or whatever. They've had the power to do it, and they've chosen not to, because once the election comes up, they go, oh, the Republicans are going to take away your human rights. You got to vote for us and give us all your money and only do the stuff for us, or else you're racist and homophobic and sexist because you don't care about the people who are going to be affected by the Republicans.
Bro, Biden really... Okay, look, Biden really said, you're not black if you don't vote for me. He really... Yeah. I still can't forget that. That was ludicrous. That was ludicrous. It wasn't even you're not black if you vote for Trump, which is still a bad take. But you know, I mean, that's more reasonable than if you don't vote for me. I'm like, bro, you forgot what you did in your life, bro. Like, you forgot what you did. I forgot what you did.
But not even that. I'm sorry, like, Democrats are terrified of this. Republicans are terrified of this. Trump got a larger portion of the black electorate voting for him than any other Republican in history since, like, the fucking party switches and shit. Like, Trump got, like, it was like over 8% of black women to vote for him, and like it was between 8 and 12% black women and almost 16% black men voted for him. That's higher numbers than any Republican ever has ever gotten since, like, it was like the party of Lincoln and shit, and they were like running fusion party people, you know, like we have to talk about that seriously. And why is that? Well, because mostly the black people who voted for Trump are much richer. You know, it's like, if you look at like who votes for Democrats and who votes for Republicans, they're always like, oh, it's race, or oh, it's college, or oh, it's this. No, $55,000 a year. If you make under $55,000 a year, you're more likely to vote for a Democrat. If you make over $55,000 a year, you're more likely to vote for a Republican. It's none of the fucking culture war shit. It's none of it. It's taxes. It's money. It's material, you know? And now they try and pretend like it's not. But ultimately, those two parties aren't even going to represent those groups of people very well. They're just not. But it's who they're messaging to, you know? And we have to like look at this as like, if they're messaging to us doing this and then the shit never changes, ultimately it isn't the lesser of two evils because they're working together. Now, again, I'm not gonna like my niece or someone says, oh, I voted for this person because I live in a place where the other guy was saying like literally exterminate us. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like I'm not, but what else are we doing towards those goals? What else are we doing to encourage community self-defense? What else are we doing to encourage community events that are inclusive, that are safe or safer, that we can keep safe? What are we doing to meet these goals? Like, you know, whether a person votes or not, whether they voted for the lesser of two evils or not, okay, whatever, fine. But what else are we doing? Because that isn't fixing it. You know, we're still in this boat. We're still like, you know, Democrats have won like fucking 7 out of the 8 last popular votes. Republicans have been in a couple more times. And we're still at a trajectory where organized labor is completely destroyed. And the fucking, you know, we're looking at planetary, extermination from all life. Like we're looking at the 6th great mass extinction on planet Earth. And that shit was done under the Republicans and the Democrats. So who is really the lesser of two evils, you know? And like, what does that mean? I think you were pointing out earlier, like that it's like, they literally do this. They split people up and they like, so a lesser of two evils for one person is going to be different than the other. And I think that is like, you know, I think we should just be more honest about that. That we're all in this material world trying to, deal and survive, and that that's not always going to be some easy, clean solution. It's not going to be always like, oh, they're the good guy, they voted for the good guy. They voted for the bad guy, they're the bad guy. It's not like that,
Yeah, I want to say I'm not sure about the numbers you gave. I'll be real with you. I'm trying to find it, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know if it was that high, but yeah, because there's only 12% of black men, so I think there were lower numbers than that. So like
that must have been by states. I think Florida had a higher state vote for black people for Trump.
Well, I mean, okay, but I also want to get the other component too. Like,
yes,
see, a lot of people were voting against Biden, right?
Yes.
So like, and people wanted to not acknowledge like why people would want to do that. I'm like, yo, there's a long history of Biden being specifically effed up towards black folks. Oh, my camera freeze? What's going on here? Okay, there it goes. It's going in. But so like I think when we think about it, a lot of people are voting against people, right? People voted for Biden against Trump. People voted for Trump against Biden, right? And I think that's where it comes to like thinking about who is harmed by what. Like, why was it 12% of black men, right? Well, because a lot of black men were harmed by Biden. And now I don't think all of them were mega black men. They were like, yeah, Trump. I think there's a bunch of them probably like, nah, just F Biden though. And the thing is, one thing is, and then why I would put people like, oh, lesser two evils. I was like, you don't even want me in the voting pool. Like, if that is the concept I'm supposed to go after, it wouldn't have been Biden I voted for. You know what I mean? But here's the thing is, I don't want to vote for either one of them jackasses. Like, there's no reason to vote for my oppressor. There's, the thing is, are they lesser two evils? I don't think so. I think they cause harm to different people at different times. The Democrats will come right back around to the transphobic shit, to the queer bashing shit in a minute. Give them a second. It's all about propaganda. It's not about what they really are about. Like when they try to talk about like being queer friendly or black friendly or brown, no, they're not. None of these Democrats are that. None of the Republicans are that. None of them. Like they're all really against any marginalized people because they need a marginalized class to stay marginalized. That is fundamental for their interest. And I think when we choose to like think of lesser two evils, we're deluding ourselves about what their real motives are, right? You said something about how they compete against us. I think that's more true than they're ever against each. I mean, they're collective against us. Now, that is 100% true. I think I still even critique and disagree with you about the really competing against each other. I think they compete against each other as in you compete for a job, but but that's it. It's not really like compete any more than that. I think when they even talk behind closed doors, they're all on the same page, like overall. Like as far as like it's like, okay, well, how do we keep money getting? How do we keep getting that money? And yeah, they want their team, whatever, or whoever will ensure that they can maintain a job to win. But they'll all switch sides whenever if that's what they be. They don't really care. Like a Republican will become a Democrat will become a Republican. They don't care. They're really not that different. And so they will do whatever will maintain their personal employment, their personal pockets. You know what I mean? And I think that's like fundamentally got to be understanding. And I think when we think lesser of two evils, you act like the Democrats are going to do that the next roundabout if they don't do it here, right? It's just who's getting hit first. That's what they're choosing. And I don't want to play that game personally. I don't think it's beneficial to play that game. I think that just hurts us to play that game. When we think about it, it's like we should ask, like, what should we be doing instead at some point?
Yes. Because, like, think about it. Like, when people talk about, like, the differences between Republicans and Democrats, for example, I'll bring up one. Immigration policy. Republicans literally want vigilantes on the border just murdering immigrants. But Democrats, they're so much nicer and so much more civilized. They want to set up a bunch of automated computer systems and robot turrets that just automatically murder immigrants with none of us having to get our hands dirty. Isn't it so much nicer when that just happens? We don't have to get our hands involved. It's the same shit. They want to create borders so that these surplus populations within these borders are forced to do whatever we have to do to survive. It keeps us desperate. It keeps us pitted against each other. But ultimately, I do think that there is some differences in how they want to achieve their goals. And I think that tells you in like ultimately like what their theory of change is and like how they want to interact. Like the Republicans, for the most part, it's like solid force. It's just naked force. Whereas the Democrats think that if they trick enough people in and they do it just nice enough, they hit us in the back of the head, but they don't like let us know that it's us, that it's them, that like it'll be a nicer situation. And I think that like that tells you something, that like the Republicans, their emphasis is more on like just control, whereas like the Democrats, they want control through this like people thinking they're nice, you know, like through that soft power. And I think that
here's the thing is, I don't think it's how they want control. I gotta put it back on you that way. So I don't think it's how they want control. They want control in the same way. They want power in the same way. The difference is how they want their legacies to be remembered, right? One wants to be able to be like, I was a diplomatic one, though they weren't. Though they're the drone striker and the greatest deporter, Mr. Obama, of like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So like, but they want they want their legacy to be remember them as somebody that was just fair. They want us to remember that they reduced the 101 crack the cocaine disparity to 25 to 1. Like that's somehow a victory.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel you.
And then the Republicans, or the right wing, all they want to be they want to be remembered as strong, as being firm and strong. Now, the Republicans are weak as fucking the Marshmallow Man, and the fucking the Democrats are about as polite and what's the word I used a second ago? Fuck, brain
civil,
civil as a cobra. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's. I mean, they're not what they say they are, but they want to be remembered in a way. But the way they get power, I don't think is really different. The policies they support really aren't that different at all, and actually fundamentally are going to be the same long run over a 12-year period or 16-year period. It's going to be the same.
But I think I think
short-term memories.
No, but I think that there's fundamentally, I think that there are fundamental differences in how, not just how they want to be remembered, but how they think it can actually be achieved. Whereas you have people on the right thinking that as long as you look tough, people will do what you say because they're afraid. And Democrats, that more lib side, thinks that the only way they can achieve neoliberalism and stay rich is if they convince enough of us that we're all in this together. Like, I do think that fundamentally their projects are slightly different. They're still using the capitalistic economy.
I don't think so. I think that is literally just aesthetics, right? They're appealing to, they have one whole goal.
Oh, no, I don't think it's just aesthetics, though.
Wait.
Okay.
Here's what I'm saying. They are appealing to two different mindsets,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing it in purpose for that one goal. It's an aesthetic choice to appeal to specific groups of people as that aesthetically like they're being oppressed in certain ways. I mean, I'm being a little facetious with it, but you know what I mean. And they're appealing to those two different main type of natures that we see within a lot of big populaces.
I would just say though that, like, I'm not saying that they're acting like in competition in the sense of like they're trying to like stop each other. They ultimately are running the same show, and they both their disagreements lie in how best to protect that. Because look at what happens. Like, a Republican gets elected and people like come out in the streets and people are fucking ready to fucking do shit. And then the moment a Democrat gets elected, and this is literally why the libs do it, everyone goes home. The world's still on fire, guys. All the animals are still dying. We're all still dying. But because of fucking Democrats in power, where did the uprisings go? Where did the fucking movements go? Everyone went home. Now, I think that is fundamental to the Democrats' theory of change. I think that they think, and they know actually, that if you throw just a few little crumbs, you're more likely to get less resistance. So I do think that there's these fundamental differences, but when you look at how the market is operating within that labor force that they need to exploit for that, the class society that is built around it, it's all the same. I totally agree with you on that angle, that part is all the same. But I do think that there are some fundamental differences in their understanding of how to keep it going. Because ultimately, all those rich motherfuckers, all they're thinking about right now is, how do we keep this going so that I stay rich? You know? They're all terrified of losing it. And so if any fights they have between each other, it's you're going to fuck up our bag, man. And then the other one's like, no, you're going to fuck up our bag. And that's what they're all arguing about. Who's going to fuck up everybody's bag?
I don't even think they're really arguing about it, though. That's why I disagree with you. I don't think they're arguing. I think they're like, no, like, you do what you do, I'll do what we do, and we'll be able to keep our bags going if we play this game. And I think it's more that than in like actually competing, like, oh, I'm fucking up your bag. Now, will they sacrifice individuals? Democrats will sacrifice their own and the opposition, and vice versa, of course, because we're not talking about, like, let's be real, a fascist society with the way the hierarchies function, and like, yeah, it is dog eat dog in that way. But I think they're definitely not really in competition. That being said, I think it doesn't really matter which one of us are right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Besides, like, you know, just on some theory shit.
Yeah, but I don't know. There is some real shit, because like the way Republicans are like pushing the hard right now is pushing for government shutdowns. It's literally why the U.S. has now been downgraded twice by both Fitch and Moody's for the second and third times in American history. Like, for the first time, U.S. Treasury bonds are seeing losses. Okay, that is a level of instability that's going to lead to the U.S. economy not being the global driver. Because the only reason the U.S. is the global driver of the world economy is because the U.S. Treasury bonds have the best yields. And that's because the U.S. military is the strongest on the planet and is able to maintain the imperial system well enough that, guess what? U.S. Treasury bonds appreciate the highest value versus any of the others because they don't have as big of militaries. But I think that, like, ultimately, like, these government shutdowns could potentially fuck up their bag too, like, completely, like, because they're pushing their hard power. Now, is that going to hurt the people, the ruling class in this country? In certain ways, yes, but in other ways, they're still going to be much more powerful than us. They'll still be able to use their economic might to force people here to do these things. It's just, this is going, you know, right now we're seeing a battle between these two forces over what's more important. An independence for America, like a kind of like an America that has the ability to just unilaterally act wherever, or one that is much more tied into the global systems, but is much more profitable, you know? And I think that that's, like, ultimately, I do think that there is a bit of an actual fight there. Now, ultimately, they're doing it for the same purpose. They just want to stay rich.
Like, yo, Cuddy, get your populace under control. I think it's more of that than, like, and they're like, yeah, I know, but what the fuck can we do? I think there's more of that energy than, like, actual, like, you're fucking up our bag. You're like, your populace under control, and they're like, we can't. Fucking Trump did too much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we wanted Trump, but he did too much. Like, and I think there's that energy. We see with the Republicans a little bit, and like, I think it's more of that. But I think it's more because Trump wasn't a Republican much as he was like a wild card.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean?
He was just
under Republican Party, but he was a wild card, and so they're like, shit, what we bite off? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is what it is. I don't want to get like I want to get onto this last segment really quick. You know what I mean? Which is definitely. What is more effective, though? Is there something more effective than electoralism? We've kind of been going over it, but you know, I'll let you go ahead and take this off and start it off again, Jelly, if you want.
Well, all I'm going to say is that I've been seeing people voting all my life, and no cops were ever getting arrested for fucking murdering poor and black folks. We weren't seeing any of that shit. We weren't seeing any of this fucking shit. Anything, the politician, all of it was the same. And then the uprising happened, and ooh, what do you know? Lots of cops are going to jail now for fucking assault and killing people. You know, that's the thing. And I'm not just talking about uprisings. Oh, it's just the only important thing is the uprising and fighting. No, uprisings don't come out of thin air. They come out of years of building, people nurturing shit on the ground. It doesn't mean that those uprisings are created by those groups. Because the one thing that you'll see in all the anarchist media and communist media from around 2020 uprising is, how did we not see this coming? And why weren't we able to continue pushing it? You know, because a lot of the left was like, holy shit, this came out of left field. And, you know,
bro. That's what I'm saying. I'll be in my bag because I was right every time. I'm in my bag. I'm like, yo, this is gonna sit off. As soon as I saw the first shit, I was like, oh yeah, it's off. It's off. It's off.
Yeah.
It's going. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not to do my own flex, but you know me long enough. You know, I'll be my bag and calling that shit. I'll be calling that shit.
Yeah. What I'm talking about is this disconnect between like social movements and like the streets, so to speak. So you have all these social movement people being like, how do we interact with the streets more? You know, and there's like this kind of like these two worlds that aren't fully connected. There's some overlap, but you know, there's like one of those worlds is always like, how do we get more theory or this or that into the other thing? And then the other world is like, why do these motherfuckers keep talking so much about books? Books are fine, but like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, but like,
be a tool in the toolbox, not the toolbox.
Yeah.
It should be the toolbox, bro.
Yes, exactly. Like,
sharpening your brain through book. I know this is just talking about sharpening your brain. That should be only one tool in the toolbox of sharpening your brain. I think a lot, we should put there's some value in books, don't get twisted. But I think we should put a lot more value, and one thing that's the most valued, which is the experiences we live through and are going through, and what we're seeing happen around us, because that shit is valid. And people be acting like, no, it's not, because it's not been peer reviewed, and it hasn't been sent around across the globe. Like, it's context change, each place, but like also, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think the personal experience, and like I learned more stuff from people in prison than I learned from the books I read in prison. I'm gonna be very fucking clear about that. And I know that sounds wild to people, but I read a lot of books in prison, and I'm telling you, I still learned more like things, especially when it comes to material reality, from being in prison. I was reading Shea, Fidel, and all that in a place where the politics were enforced by shivs. Understand me. If you don't know what a shiv is, Google it. SHIV. But we're enforced by shivs, enforced by force. And understanding that made me understand the whole of politics in a whole different way. And then I also get into the point of like, electoral politics aren't politics. They're like a facade of politics. Politics are more, we talk about like governmental politics, foreign policy. Politics are the austerities that happen with or without the president approving it.
Yeah,
they still happen. Like without necessarily having to be an election, they'll just happen, right? Or a vote on it. They'll just do those things, right? Politics is the state of our medical system. Politics is the state of our food system. Politics is the state of housing. Politics is the state of the material reactions and the interactions between people and the forces and systems. It is the exertion of force and how it affects people. It is how it
maintains that stasis, how it maintains that stability through force, and what kinds of force it uses to do that.
And what it's not, though, is whose name you put in the box, right? And the thing is, also, I want to be clear. It is not easier to move Biden than it's easier to move Trump. It isn't. It's the same. It is the same, because what we see is, and this becomes of what actions we should be doing, is when we use our force, when we use our power and flex and do not relent against the system, against the state, against the politicians, put pressure on them economically, pressure on their reputations, them at their houses, at their churches. When you see us do those things, those have outcomes, right? Those are how we move. And then there's the other side of it, right? The mutual aid products. Shout out to Celinda. If y'all ever saw that on Non-Compete, Celinda does dope organizing in Albuquerque. And shout out to all the people doing work out there who supply food to thousands of people and thousands of homes in one of the most impoverished cities in the country, right? Shout out to Gainesville, where they also have a food program getting to hundreds of people that started up during COVID. Shout out to Food Not Bombs and all these organizations that support our communities by taking material actions as people within those communities. Those are the things like that, like make the impacts. Those are the things that make better situations for people. Shout out to all the numerous people across and groups across the country that did. I'm not gonna like point any out because I want to bring heat to them. But did collective squatting efforts where they put families in empty houses that aren't being used. to be able to have them housed. Shout out to all these people, but that's community efforts. Those are things that they do on the ground from collective power that we have amongst each other. Everything from shutting down ports when we're fighting to mutual aid. Like, that's all like what creates politics and power from the people. And I think that's what we should be doing instead of focusing on electoral politics. We see the problem. What can we do to fix the problems that our community got? Not what will this politician do? Because they won't do jack shit. They will not. In fact, they will do everything they can to make it worse.
Yep. I think it's also, you're focusing on the efficacy, and I agree with you. The efficacy of social movements is far greater than some stupid fucking electoral campaign, because you put all your time and energy and money into that, and then there's no guarantee that motherfucker's going to even do any of that shit. There's just none. But like, ultimately, for me, the reason I encourage people to become part of social movements and to take part in spaces of autonomy, like, temporary autonomous zones and squats and all that shit, is because the moment you get one little taste of freedom, that little taste of autonomy, that little taste of that power that you can get in that space with other people, that you build it, and you build it in opposition to this world, it's the best feeling in this world. It's literally the best feeling in this world that I've ever had. I've never been closer to other people in my life than I have been in moments like that, when we were each tasting that little extra freedom, that little extra autonomy, and we were willing to fight for it, and we were willing to push for it. Like, I think that, it's really good to be like, oh, we got to talk about how to make things better, or this or that. But like, ultimately, we're all going to die. And like, what do you want your life to be? Do you want your life sitting in a tiny little fucking cubicle, tiny little box, or do you want to have a little bit of fucking adventure in it? Do you want to have a little bit of love and joy and empathy and heartfelt connections, because to be honest, that's the shit that's important to me. Like, I don't care about making money. I don't care, I got to eat. I got to support the people I care about. Like, yes, I'm not saying that I just say fuck it all, but I would give all that shit away just if another Occupy or another uprising started tomorrow. That's where I'd be. I'd say, fuck it. I guess I'm finding a new job, And it's not just because I'm like, oh, fucking drop out, tune in, tune out, drop out, whatever, shit like that, some bullshit, hippie bullshit. No, it's because when you get that little taste of autonomy outside of that electoral fucking merry-go-round, is once you get that little taste of autonomy, you'll never want to give it up. You never will. And you see when other people are striving for it, you see that you know what they're striving for. It's not just, oh, they're just trying to make something different. No, you know exactly what they're trying to do. And you're going to be there to help them, because you know that if they get a better chance at opening them that little bit of autonomy, it's going to help you too, And so like, yes, we do need to be part of social movements for various reasons. But part of it is for us. Part of it is for our own emotional, spiritual well-being, and I think that we need to.
I think that's where like it comes in, that like our spiritual well-being is tied to other people. Our spiritual well-being is also tied to the impacts we make. I think a lot of times, I'll talk to you about this, and I think I've even said it on here before. I measure my own life based off the ripples I make, good, bad, and indifferent, right? And even when we think about like I'm gonna die, one of the things I think about all the time is like, what ripples am I gonna make and I'm leaving behind for the people who come after me, because they're gonna have to pick up every torch that I wasn't able to fully carry, or they're gonna take it from wherever I left it at. You know what I mean? It's like a marathon, right? After I reached that point, and when I died, that's where I ended, and I left that torch, and that's where people got picked up. So what am I doing? Am I taking the torch and running the wrong way? Am I going the opposite way? Like, Gabriel, you run this way and I ran that way? Like, that's a problem, right? And sometimes we'll get confused and we'll do a little bit of this, but as long as we overall take it further. And I think that's a big part of it for me. I think it's really important to me, maybe because of my upbringing and like, or lack thereof, and like this shit that happened to me, that my life has a purpose as well. And yes, also I've been very, very much where you're at about like needing to experience stuff with people. Like, I think that's when we had come. We both value people over money over all those things. Now, like I've learned, I've had to put more time into getting resources and trying to build some infrastructure because because of the way I think of like people are more important, so I have to build that which seems like a freaking contradiction. And I'm trying to figure it out myself. I'm saying this now as I'm still working through it and doing my pieces to grow in those ways. But the thing is like realizing that people are the most valuable thing. People you care about most valuable, your community, and then also the children that come after, the future, and what you leave them, where you leave them to pick up, because whatever we don't carry, they're gonna have to carry.
Yep. And they're gonna be carrying for the little ones. Yeah.
So yeah, it's facts. What you about to say? Sorry, they're carrying for the little ones?
I was just saying, yeah, they're gonna be carrying it for the next little ones, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's not stopping. It's, you know, and we have to look at it like that. It doesn't mean that we have to be like, oh, I have to break myself and I have to be selfless, blah, blah, blah. No, because if there's a revolution or an insurrection or an uprising saying that, oh, you just have to not include yourself, fuck that. That shit ain't for you, you know? But uprisings, things like that, they're not like that. They're places where we are able to much easier achieve our needs and desires. I've like never gone hungry at an uprising. I've never gone hungry at an occupation. I've never gone hungry at anything like that. Ever. There's always people sharing food. There's always people giving, you know, and there's always people to talk to. There's always people to comfort each other. There's always that. You know, those needs
are the people in the kitchen. That's what I say. When you go out to movements, respect people in the kitchen. They be there and be in damn near no credit and be putting out mad work that goes unrecognized because they keep people fed. Well, like even if you're out there and we're brawling with the you know the one times, who keeps us fed, right? The people working in the kitchen who didn't take time out to go throw down, whether they felt uncomfortable or whether they felt like that was just more important at the moment. You got, like respect them, because I think a lot of times they don't get respected at all. Like you'll hear even Megs get respected, but you will not hear the kitchen get respected, and people sleep on that. And there's always people who come out or play the role of the kitchen. If not the kitchen, it might be food not bombs just showing up, but they come out and they make sure we eat.
Oh yeah, and that shit's important. Like that shit is hella important. All those support roles, like you know, like it's because it's not just like we think about it as like uprisings of like you know. Oh, I'm sorry. I just looked at the chat. The dogs. Dude, there's always dogs at uprisings. Come on. There's always Oogle kids drinking wine out of space bags with like 50 dogs that are just like running around, wild ass animals and shit. Oh my God. That shit takes me back to Black Coffee, dude. So many fucking wild ass dogs.
Give context. People know Black Coffee. Black Coffee was a coffee shop that was in Seattle on Capitol Hill. And it was a place that wouldn't serve police, put it that way. The cops were very mad when they were refused service. Sometimes. But no, the anarchist coffee shop, there's a lot of different events and things that happen out of that space, for good and bad. Things are always complicated. Okay, so I think right now we should head to the last little piece of shout outs and information about what's going on. I think we'd be pretty good to call it a wrap. I mean, like I said, I think the last thing actually on the segment I'd say, make sure to organize, fight against the systems and the way they function that are trying to oppress you, support your community, and build infrastructure for our peoples. That's what we should be doing instead of doing electoral politics. That's why I stand on underground organizing is far more effective. It causes way more change. And I've actually never seen electoralism that cause any change. I've seen take credit for changes that we have caused on the ground, but I've never seen it actually cause it.
I've seen it cause lots of change, but not good change. It's always bad.
That part.
It's always bad.
Fair enough. I can see that. Which, anyways, so shout outs to everybody who showed up. Well, okay, now I'm gonna jump off and say there's things that are popping up. Still working on the video for both the Beaumont prison flood, I guess you'd call it. And I'm also working on one for they clone Tyrone. More importantly is we should we'll be having, I don't want to give out a date yet. We have a date. Actually, I will say October 9th, Labor Day, we'll be having a stream on, which is a Monday. But it'll be a 4-hour stream. The 4-hour stream will have multiple folks. I'm not gonna drop any names yet, but we have some very big YouTubers confirmed at least. And we're doing a fundraiser for a Comrade Inside. I won't give too many details quite yet. So please show up and come through to that, support it. Share it. It's really important. He's the inside organizer, and we're trying to get money for lawyer fees because they're trying to like prosecute and persecute him for his organizing because you don't have rights when you're a prisoner. So make sure to show up for that. It's on 9th on Columbus Day. It'll be anti-colonialist fundraiser, talking about like the colonialist project as a whole, and all the different components of it, and going have different speakers, different people talking. I'm trying to raise a good amount of money. Our goal is not just for that stream alone. There'll be also an ongoing campaign to raise money, but our whole goal is $20,000. So we'll see how close we can get to that. So we can pay for a lawyer and make sure that they can fight for their freedom, because right now they're trying to turn the rest of their sentence from a certain amount of time. I don't want to give out any information I'm supposed to, but which would send to a much longer sentence of 30 plus more years, which would essentially be life. So we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen, and we're trying to get them proper, adequate legal defense. So please come on the 9th, peep that out. And also subscribe. If you're not subscribed to Overthrow Media, subscribe right now. They've been booting people off the channel because his live hasn't got enough views. Shared it. Speaking of the fact they haven't got enough views, make sure to share this so we can get some more on the VOD. Leave some comments afterwards in the comment section, all that good stuff. And solidarity with the folks who are fighting to be able to keep their land in Hawaii after the freaking fire, and how all the corporations are trying to exploit them. Stand in solidarity with them, definitely. And there was a couple more shout outs for things I just am right now spacing, so we'll get to next week, I guess. But
I just wanted to say, like, it sounds like a lot, and 20,000 is a big goal, but when people are locked up, any bit you can do to help them is like so powerful, because even if it's not as much as you need, and you know that you need to keep going, just knowing that you're not isolated in there, that there's literally people outside of those walls that know you exist, that know you're still alive, and that are willing to like fight for your life, fight for that your fucking spirit, that can be the difference between somebody giving up and not. It just really is, because it's fucking hard. But like anything we can do to help support folks that are locked up inside. Like, we think it might not be that big of a deal.
And not just support, but just solidarity, because they put in work from the inside to the outside. We're like, we build with them. They put in actual work. You know what I mean? So it's not just like you're just supporting, but it's just really like giving back for all the work they're putting in. So just throwing that out there. You know what I mean? But one of that, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead if you want to finish what you're saying.
Oh, no, I was just, I just wanted to mention that like, it seems like very small to us on the outside, but like for folks on the inside, it's way bigger,
Which is facts. Yeah, man. Also, maybe we should at some point have a letter writing stream if y'all want to do that. Drop it in the comment section of the VOD, not the stream, but the VOD. Let me know that you'd be like, we should do a letter writing party specifically on one day. We'll just do a letter writing party where we'll be like, write letters and just hang out and do some simple like that and chill and write letters to people inside, because man, people be forgot about, and even a letter can like really turn someone's day around, keep them in the game of life, if you get what I'm saying. So all right, but we're gonna go ahead and cut it out. I'm gonna go now. Got a little hour and a half in. I hope y'all enjoyed. Share this video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure to hit the bell. Also, if you want to follow me on Patreon, please do. I appreciate the support. Patreon, Big Villains on Patreon. So check it out. We outro. Deuces.
Peace.